hundreds of reform movements during the antebellum era, many of which were directly tied to religion. The Second Great Awakening sprung the idea of postmillennialism, which was a term widely used meaning perfection was needed in order for the second coming of Christ to arrive on earth. Reform movements fit into this concept because it was believed individuals and societies had to be perfected before Christ would come again. How did the people try to perfect themselves? This is the temperance movement in plain English. The temperance movement was an anti-alcohol movement which became one of the most important movements in the antebellum era because it acted as a training ground for other reform movements. Other reform movements came later and looked at how the organizing techniques of the temperance movement worked to reform a large number of people. The temperance movement was one of the largest movements, and it was bigger than any other reform movement at the time. Also, the temperance movement appealed to the most diverse group of people compared to any other reform, including women, men, Indians, African Americans, Northerners, and Southerners who all participated in the movement. Reasons for the movement. 1. Alcohol was a huge problem. Statistically, antebellum Americans drink a lot more than any other nation at the time. 2. Religion. People believed that huge consumption of alcohol kept people from achieving perfection. Alcohol could lead to hell and was referred to as demon rum. Temperance was believed to lead to good. 3. There was a big gender component to the temperance movement. Women were the strongest members of the temperance movement because they said alcohol took away from fathers and husbands from their families, which would lead families into poverty. 4. Reasons for fighting against alcohol was weighed in by scientists. Publicized studies said that people would explode from drinking alcohol. The first phase of the temperance movement was called the moderate phase, which took place from 1815 to 1830. Supporters of the moderate phase wanted to temper their drinking. They said one does not have to quit drinking 100%, but to drink only in moderation. There was a scale of what you could and could not drink. Wine and beer was okay, as long as it was taken in moderation, but absolutely no hard alcohol. Early temperance workers used moral suasion. They were trying to convince people that it was immoral to drink. They were not trying to fight for laws to be implemented, but trying to convince people that drinking to excess is bad. The second phase of the movement was called the radical phase, which took place in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s. The moderate phase kept going, but some people switched from moderate to radical. Radicals said no alcohol at all. They called themselves teetotalers, meaning no alcohol at all. They used different methods compared to the moderates. The radicals used coercion, which meant they believed people needed to be made to stop drinking. This led to temperance laws being implemented in states to keep people from drinking. Radicals said it was up to the government to make sure people did not drink. Neil Doe was the strongest spokesman for legal prohibition. He used his religious background to promote his agenda. In 1851, a Doe law got passed to prohibit the sale and manufacturing of liquor in Maine. In 4 years, 13 states adopted the same type of law that had been passed in Maine. In 1855, all of New England, New York, and parts of the Midwest were dry and free from all alcohol. The temperance movement was successful because the amount of alcohol that was consumed declined in the antebellum era. But by the 1850s, most of the reform movements, including the temperance movement, declined because of abolitionism, which became the only reform movement that people talked about. Nevertheless, the temperance movement showed the power of religious incentives to shape people's actions and beliefs in the antebellum era. The end. That was the temperance movement in plain English.